Welcome to rSlash I Don't Work Here Lady, where OP gets fired from a job he doesn't work at. A while back I was working in an office that allowed dogs. It was an open floor plan, and since customers never came into the office, we kept the dogs' food and water bowls right by the front door just because it was the most convenient space, and no one else would see them but us who worked there. Of the 6 of us who worked in the main office area, I was the only one who didn't have a dog. I had a no pets policy at my apartment and always felt horribly left out. To make matters worse, across the way was a doggy daycare. One day, a very frantic woman came in and she had an absolutely massive basset hound with her. Usually the only people who came into the office were associates who had appointments with someone working there, but it was rare they brought their dogs. She ran up to me and said, "Do you work here?" And I said, "Yes, how can I help you?" And she said, "I wasn't sure if you took walk-ins, but I read online I could just drop them off. I tried to call, but no answer." I didn't know what she was talking about at that point, and I said, "Come again? Who did you call exactly?" Thinking if I could just saddle her off to whoever she came to see, I wouldn't have to decipher her problem. She said, "Well, it doesn't matter now. Look, something urgent's come up and I really need to leave him here. Here's the food he likes and I'll be back in a few hours and..." At this point, I wasn't thinking of the doggy daycare. I thought maybe she was a friend of someone here. I said, "Well, alright. Can I get your name, please?" And she said her name and then asked if I needed her to sign anything, and I was so confused at this point. I just said, "Why would I need you to sign something?" And she left almost immediately. So I took Otis the dog to the back and showed him to my coworkers, and no one knew the woman or dog. I was worried she wouldn't come back, but at the same time, my wish for an office dog had been granted. And Otis was supremely chill. All he did all day was lie around and drool onto his own ears. I just freshened him up every now and then, took him out every couple hours, and he was happy as a clam on a big cushy dog bed we thankfully had an extra of. He just loved attention from anywhere he could get it. At the end of the day, the woman, thank God, came back. She said, "Thanks, you're a lifesaver. How was he?" And I said, "He was a champ," and was about to say, "But why is he here?" when she said, "That's a relief. Most kennels say he gets anxious around other dogs. I heard you operated at a much higher capacity. I was thrilled to see you had so few clients in the room at one time. So how much do I owe?" And that's when I realized she thought we were a dog daycare. Now, I probably should have corrected her, but I loved my day with the office dog, and I did want to get paid for supervising this strange dog all day. I just threw out the number that sounded fair and appropriate. "That'll be $20, I said. She replied, "Really?" in this very high tone, and I couldn't tell if I'd overshot or undershot, but she paid me and left. My coworkers were laughing hysterically when they realized what had happened, and we thought it would just be a good story for the future. But the next week, she came back. She said we were so much more affordable and less overcrowded than our other place, and she was happy to use us. I was glad for the company, so just took them. I didn't think there was any way she couldn't have at least some idea we weren't a dog daycare. This whole ordeal was so strange, I just figured, don't question a good thing. I was much younger and dumber then. Not long after, Otis started getting dropped off 2, sometimes even 3 or 4 days a week. I was in heaven. He was such a love. And he made fast friends with the delivery guys and visitors. One day, we took our office Christmas card photo and Otis was over that day, so we included him in a Santa hat. It was pretty great. But it turns out Otis's owner was friends with one of our clients, who I guess happened to have the card out on her table or was kind enough to display it alongside her other holiday cards. Because one day, Otis's owner came in holding the card and walked up to me and said, "I can't even believe I'm asking this, but is that my dog in this photo? This isn't a dog daycare at all. This is just an office, isn't it?" She said it with a note of surprise, as though she was looking around and putting it all together for the first time. No coincidence that this was the first time she wasn't in some crazy rush either. She was like, "Then who are all these other dogs?" And I explained. I was terrified she was going to demand her money back, or worse, take some sort of legal action against us for misrepresenting ourselves as a dog daycare business, or complain to corporate. Instead, she basically said, "Why didn't you ever say anything?" And I explained we just really liked having Otis around. She stopped for a minute and seemed to be thinking and said, "Is that right?" And I said yes and told the story of how I was the only one in the office without a dog, so I loved the company. She seemed a little flummoxed or hesitant, understandably, because the whole thing was so weird. She turned to my coworker and asked if I was telling the whole truth. I don't know why she thought my coworker, also a stranger to her, was any more trustworthy than me, but hey, strange times. My coworker backed me up. So she said, "Well, I wish you'd said something sooner. Could have saved me a lot of embarrassment with my friend back there. All right." I have to get going. See you at 4 o'clock. And she left Otis. I couldn't believe it. I said, "So he can stay?" And she replied, "Where else could I find someone to watch him one-on-one all day for $20? And off she went. Otis stayed my office dog until his family moved away, luckily right around the same time I took a new job. With all this time in the quarantine sitting around doing nothing, I thought it was as good as time as any to tell that story. I love how the woman just like, "Oh, okay, well, see you later." Like, she just totally took it in stride and is like, "Yeah, I'm okay with this." Our next Reddit post is from Itchy Drafter. I work in an architecture firm in a large building that also contains many other types of professional offices. The receptionist for my firm is on another floor. My office is on an upper floor in a corner, so it's not a logical place for people to go first when they need to come to our building and don't know where they're going. Nevertheless, it has a door directly to a main corridor, so lost people occasionally knock on it, which is why we have a sign on it with the name of our firm and directing people to our receptionist on the 3rd floor. Alas, the sign did not deter this middle-aged and patient lost lady and her husband from knocking on my door. "Is this the doctor's office?" "No, this is an architecture firm." "How do I get to the doctor's office?" "There are building directories in the stairs and at the elevator." I start to give her direction to the stairs and elevator, but she interrupts. She's getting huffy and impatient and pushing her way past me right into the middle of my office. "Why can't you just tell me where the doctor's office is?" "I'm sorry, but there are a lot of offices in this building, including at least 10 doctor's offices, and I don't know their floors or office numbers." "Can't you call and find out?" I'd be happy to let you use my phone." "Why can't you call?" Me sensing that I'm not going to get rid of her unless I call somebody. "What's the doctor's name? Do you have the number?" "I don't remember his name. I have a 2:15 appointment. I'm going to be late." Know that this is not an elderly woman, and I just wasn't getting the sense that this was a confused old person with a memory issue. But still, I'm trying to be nice and helpful, even if just to get her out of my office. "I'm sorry, but without a name or number, I don't think I can call the doctor's office for you. Maybe I can Google this address and see what doctor's office shows up, and that will jog your memory?" "I don't have time for this. Call the building manager." I explained to the woman that I don't have contact info for the building management, and there's no staffed main office in this building. We're back to there's nothing I can do except suggest that she walk down the hall and check the building directory at the stairs. Her husband is trying to drag her in that direction, but she's not having it. "You are the worst receptionist. Businesses don't know how to get good people these days. I'm going to tell the doctor about you." "I'm sorry, but I'm not the receptionist and I don't work for your doctor. I'm an architect. You're in my office." In case that isn't obvious from the fact that the door opens directly into my small, messy office filled with drawings. Our firm's receptionist is on the 3rd floor, as the sign on my door says. "Well, why didn't you say so? I'll go wait down there." Wait for what? We're an architecture firm. Our receptionist works for the architecture firm. We have nothing to do with the doctor's offices or any other companies in the building. "You call her and tell her I'm on my way down there." At this point, her husband seems to be grasping that I and my office and my firm have nothing to do with her doctor whose name escapes her, and starts trying to explain it to her. She brushes him off and yells at me again to call my receptionist. I dial our receptionist with the lady still standing there and say that a couple is on their way down, but they're looking for a doctor's office in the building, and I hope that they read the building directory in the stairs on their way down. "Well, I never." I've never before actually heard that phrase used in real life. I thought it was reserved for caricatures of uptight, entitled old women on TV, like Nellie Olsen's mother. She flounced off down the hall. That's like stomping, but floatier because she was suspended by hot air, dragging her husband. I thought that since they had to use the stairs or elevator to get to our reception area, they would see the directory on their way down, and it would jog their memory as to which doctor they were looking for, and it would tell them where to find the doctor. But no, she did find her way down to pester our receptionist and told her that I was a horrible employee and that she was reporting me to the state medical board. Down in the comments, Midnight Ranger added this: OP, you sound like an awful receptionist. For everyone's good, I really hope the medical board takes away your architecture firm. And then Agamemnon adds, I hope they take away his medical license. Our next Reddit post is from MF Stevenson. About a year ago, I worked selling solar panel systems. This job required me to wear khakis and a blue polo when I was meeting customers. One particular day, after meeting with a homeowner, I had to stop by my local Walmart to get more pens and a notepad for my work bag. I pretty consistently got asked if I worked there by other customers, and I would help if I knew what they were after, but I always told them that I didn't work there, and they were always kind. So this fateful day, I grabbed my pens and paper and checked out in the self-checkout section. As I was leaving, I heard someone behind me say, "And just where do you think you're going?" Now, a little about me. I try to mind my own business as much as possible and don't like to get wrapped up in other people's drama. When I hear outbursts like that in public, I assume it's not because of me. I also try to follow the rules as much as possible. In this case, I assume it wasn't me because I paid for everything, so I continue to my car. Roughly 30 feet from my car, I hear again, "Hey, you, stop!" I do turn around at that one because that's typically what you say to a thief. An employee who can only be described as a Karen is marching towards me, 8 different kinds of pissed off. She starts reaming into me about how I'm abandoning my shift and I'm not supposed to get off for another 3 hours. I'm standing there bewildered because I genuinely have no clue what she's talking about. And I try to let her know that I don't work there, but she won't let me get a word in. Eventually she says, "Forget it, you're fired." I waited about 5 seconds and told her, "I don't work here. I've never worked here." She stared at me and muttered, "Sorry," and ran back inside. I'm still not sure what happened, but that's my tale of being fired from a job I never worked at. Hope it brought you some joy. OP, you missed a golden opportunity to flip the tables on a Karen and ask to see her manager. Our next Reddit post is from Deleted. This was in college. A bunch of guys rent a beat-up old house in town next to a daycare. The problem is the parents picking up and dropping off park in our driveway. We argue with the owner of the daycare every day. She doesn't care. So one day, I began parking behind the parents who are parked in my driveway. This infuriates the daycare owner. We go back and forth, and usually I go out and move my car so the parents can get their car out. One day though, I've just had it. I've worked most of the night, had early morning classes, and I have 20 minutes to shave, shower, and get ready for my second job this afternoon. I go home and sure enough, parents are in our driveway again. So I park behind them and go inside. I get in the shower, and when I get out, the daycare owner is beating on the door loud enough to shake the wall. I go downstairs wrapped in a towel and open the door. She bursts into the middle of the living room and screams at me. While she's screaming, I take the towel off and calmly dry my hair. I am buck effing naked. She stops screaming long enough to realize she's standing next to a naked college student, screams something about calling the cops, and bolts for the door. It doesn't open. In her haste to leave, she's locked the door instead of unlocking it. Now she's stuck with a naked man. I tell her I have to have the key, which is true, to unlock the door, and the key is upstairs on my dresser. I leave her looking like she's about to have a heart attack. I take the longest time to go upstairs and get dressed and get the key. When I come back to the living room, she's white as a ghost. I unlock the door and say, "It sucks to be stuck and not able to leave, right?" Fast forward about 20 minutes, and when I'm leaving, a cop is parked in front of the house. I chat with them through the car window. I explain the situation and they chuckle. "Did you invite her in?" "No," I tell them. "She barged into my house." "Well, it's not a crime to be naked in your own house. Her problem for violating your privacy." I'd love to say this rectified the situation, but it didn't. We never found a way to stop parents from parking in our driveway. But it was fun for a few minutes to freak out a stuck-up, mean, middle-aged woman. Down in the comments, Val Helen has this story. "Growing up, my house was across the road from a church. This church didn't have enough parking, and people would park on our property. To not be on the road, the car would basically be in our front yard. My dad had a friend that owned a towing company and would call him to tow the cars away every Sunday morning. The towed people would call the cops. The cops would ask if they parked their cars on our property. They would admit they did, but they had to because there wasn't enough parking at the church. The cops would tell them they couldn't do anything. My dad had the right to have cars on our property towed anytime he wanted. But we were at church, would be the usual retort. Cops would explain to them that them being at church didn't excuse them from leaving their vehicles, unwanted and uninvited, on a person's property. Still happened every Sunday for years until the church expanded their parking lot. That was rSlash Lady, and if you like this video then hit that like button because it really helps my channel out.